I'm going to be presenting the webinar tonight. We will be recording it, so
session 1.
asking that everybody stay muted while I present, and then when I open it up for questions, I will be able to unmute the group, I think, to ask questions. Additionally, if you have questions during the webinar, you can put them in the chat so that I will do my best to answer them. I do ask that you not give out personal financial information. So if you have a question, if you can phrase it in a general way rather than a specific way around finances, that will also be helpful. So let me get the slideshow started and then we can start. Where's my place? Ah. There we go.
We are waiting on the Zoom. I'm logged in through my phone. My husband and I are on computer again.
All right. So hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Amy Leach. I am one of the coaches with the Heartland Foundation. I have been teaching financial aid and FAFSA seminars now for almost 10 years, which is hard for me to believe. And tonight we are going to cover the 2022, 2023, 2024 FAFSA. So this FAFSA form is for next year. But any high school senior this year who is going to go to college next year, any current college student is gonna fill this form out. So why do you want to fill out a FAFSA? Everybody asks me, and everybody's like, well, I make too much money. I'm not going to get any financial aid. Why should I fill out a FAFSA? This is what I'm going to tell you. It is the first step towards any funding. If you do not have a FAFSA on file, colleges can't award scholarships, merit-based scholarships. I lost a $5,000 study abroad scholarship because I didn't have a FAFSA on file when I was a college senior. So even if you don't think you're going to qualify for need-based money, you still need to complete the FAFSA. Who is eligible for FAFSA? So anybody who is a US citizen, as long as the student is a US citizen, their parents don't have to be. Registered alien number, you have a green card, or you have refugee status. All of those things, you can apply for FAFSA. Eligible non-citizens, and then students on F1 visas, H4 visas, or H5 visas can also use the FAFSA form. So before you start your FAFSA, I want to encourage you to kind of get some things organized and get some things together. It will make your time spent much easier. The FAFSA is open. It's available. It will be open until next fall. So any student who even started college now and wants to attend college in the spring would fill out the 2022 FAFSA for spring. So FAFSA will stay open. Make sure you use your name exactly as it appears on your social security card. If you don't, you won't be able to auto load your taxes. So that causes problems. So I always encourage people to do that. The other thing I want to tell you is this account will be used the student's entire college career. And if you are a parent and you have multiple children, you can use the same FAFSA ID through all of your children. So make sure you pick a FAFSA ID that you know, and put it someplace where you're going to remember it. It's really not very fun to reset the FAFSA ID. Here's the website for FAFSA ID. Additionally, at the end of the slideshow, at the end of the presentation, I'll put up a screen with all these web links on it. So that should hopefully help people with that as well. And then this is the website to apply for FAFSA. And I lost my chat, so give me a second. Give me a second, folks. I'm gonna open, I lost my chat window. So, oh, there we go. There we go. I found it. Sorry about that. So here is the link to apply for FAFSA. Additionally, if you use the My Student ID app last year, that is currently gone. They will rework on that, but they had a lot of trouble with that last year, so they did not open it this year. Here are the things you need to prepare for to fill out your FAFSA. I did my son's yesterday, and I did not have all my stuff together when I did it. And it took me about an hour. Normally, it would take me about half an hour. But I had to go dig up a tax return, a W-2 document, right? All my income statements. So this is the easiest way to do this, is to get your parent a FAFSA ID, get a student FAFSA ID. If your parents are divorced this year, this is a change. Both parents need to create a FAFSA ID, and both parents will be required to file a FAFSA. So get your federal tax return, your social security number for both student and parent, driver's license if you have one, your most recent tax return, your W-2, other records of income and money. So if you have stocks, if you have bonds, you have 529 accounts, whatever it is, have that information available. Parents and students can use the IRS data retrieval tool this year. Again, this tool is wonderful. It will save you hours of time. And that is why your student ID has got to match, your FAFSA name has got to match your tax return and your social security. Okay. Additionally, if you receive child support, veterans benefits, non-educational benefits, have untaxed income, all of those records you need to complete your FAFSA. So remember how I said student of divorced parents? My apologies to you all, because here's the deal. Previously, the parent who had the child most of the time was the one we used for completing the FAFSA. They changed that rule this year. And what that means is the parent who contributes the most financially, whether they claim the child on their tax return or not, both parents will have to file the FAFSA. Now I have a question in here. If the parents are married, do they both have to fill out the FAFSA? No. If you are married and file jointly, only one of you needs a FAFSA ID and only one of you needs to fill in FAFSA information. So this both parents only applies to divorced parents. So now we've got all our data together, right? We collected all our documents and we are ready to fill out the FAFSA form. So here's the page. If you have never filled out a FAFSA, never logged in, any of that, you're going to use this top button, new to the FAFSA process. Click this. This is what the student should do, because the students need to do their FAFSA as well. There's a parent section, there's a student section. But that's where you start. If you have filled out a FAFSA before, go to this login return user section. Okay. What I'm going to cover today is for dependent students with parental data. If a student is independent, they have an additional section to the FAFSA, which I am not going to cover today. but I will cover what makes a dependent student or an independent student. So the first section of the FAFSA has 7 sections. Sections 1 through 3 are student information. Their demographics, where they live, their income, student tax return. There are 2 questions I want to point out here. Question number 26, ask your college experience. Our high school seniors have never attended college. This is their first year undergraduate. Even if you took some college courses in high school, this is your status. If you are a returning student, right? If you are going to have completed 30 credits by next year, you are a second-year sophomore. So that is kind of, and then up through that. 60 credits, you're a junior, 3rd-year junior, even if it's your 4th year of school, right? That's kind of how that works. The other question is question 27. This is your first bachelor's degree, and that is what we are going to put on the FAFSA. There's a question in here about students claiming independence, and I will talk about that a little bit later in the slideshow. And yes, after this presentation, probably on Monday, we will send out the recording for this. So that's section 1 through 3. Section 4 is all parent information. And this includes parent demographics, household sources of income. Question 69 was new last year. It's household size. So it's not just if you have extended family living in your house, you can add them to your household size. And it asks a very specific question about that. So feel free to add that in there. The other thing I want to point out here to parents is that you do not claim an IRA or a retirement account on your FAFSA unless you have taken a withdrawal from that. And because of COVID, I know that we have families that on their 2021 tax return, they took withdrawal from their IRA because they were unemployed or something happened and they needed those extra funds. So generally speaking, you wouldn't have taken a withdrawal from your IRA and you would not have to claim this on FAFSA because the money that's in the IRA and retirement account, you do not have to report on FAFSA. But if they took a withdrawal, they do. Section 5 is completed only if you are not a dependent student. To be an independent student, you must meet one of the 4 criteria. Here we go. You ready? You have a dependent child, which means you are a parent. 2, you are married. 3, you are active duty military. There's one more. No, 3. Those are the 3 things that will make you an independent student. Oh, yeah, there is a 4th thing. If you are over the age of 25. So any student under the age of 25 has to be a dependent of their parent, no matter where they live, no matter what they do. If a student wants to file for independent status and they have legally filed with the courts to be independent of their parents, they can claim that on their FAFSA, but it takes a lot to do that. And they will have to meet with the financial aid office and prove their independence. And that if they're proving independence, it means they are receiving 0 financial support from their parents, which means no car insurance, no car registration, no rent, any of those things. I sat on a committee that we used to evaluate those. We rarely granted students independent status. There are, I am going to say this, some states that if the student lives in that state for 1 year and earns income in that state for 1 year, they can be classified as a resident for tuition though. And there are a handful of states that are doing that. Montana, Utah are 2 of them for sure. Section 6, this is on the student section, and this is early on in the student section. The student is going to list the colleges they plan to attend. They need to look up their college code. If a student is applying, there are 10 colleges allowed to be on there. If a student is applying to more than 10 colleges, they will apply to their first 10. Once their FAFSA is processed, They can go back in, remove some schools, add others. The schools they remove are still getting their FAFSA. It's just, that's how the process works. And then if you live in any of the following states, Connecticut, Illinois, Massachusetts, Michigan, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, West Virginia, or Vermont, you need to prioritize your in-state schools by priority, because that's how those states award financial aid. So once you complete steps 1 through 6, you come to step 7, which is sign and date your FAFSA. Now, here at Heartland, before you sign and date your FAFSA, you have the privilege of having one of our coaches review your FAFSA. This is oftentimes me. Other coaches, if they have questions, will send their FAFSAs to me and I will look at them for them. So at the end of this whole process, there's a button that says print a copy for my records. Print the copy. It saves it as a PDF. Send that to your Heartland coach. Let them review it. Since I've been doing this webinar, people do much better. I've had a few times not had a mistake on it, or not had something I want somebody to check or have had a question about. But generally speaking, somebody always makes a mistake. And I say this, I made a mistake on my son's FAFSA last year because I put that he worked. He was working at the time, but he didn't work the year before and didn't file a tax return the year before. So I had to go back in, edit my son's FAFSA. It was super fun. No, better have somebody check it. Because if somebody checked mine, they would have realized I didn't load a W-2 for him and been like, did he work? Because you don't have a W-2 reported. So that's what I'm going to say. And this year I did send mine to another coach to look at. Okay. Items to pay attention to. Question 11 asks for the student driver's license number. If they have a student driver's license, if they have a driver's license, put it in there. If they have a learner's permit, don't put the learner's permit in, wait until they come back and have a license, and then you can put it in. The questions on gender and selective service are no longer on the FAFSA. These are 4 questions they took out. Their goal is to reduce the number of questions on FAFSA down to about 50. They have started that process, but they are not there yet. And then, okay. And then question 22 asks for parents' highest level of education in the United States. If you have a parent who got a degree from another country outside of the United Kingdom, you need to put high school diploma, and or if your parents have like a master's degree or a PhD from another country, there is an option for other, unknown and other. You can mark that. Okay. The reason you want to mark that is because there is funding for first generation college students. And so that's why that question is important. And then question 23 has some really funky wording. It's better this year. It's much clearer this year. It like actually makes sense. But it asks what degree will you hold by the time you use this FAFSA? And it's a high school diploma. Our students are going to graduate. It's super exciting. So that's what needs to be marked there. And if you're a student who is going to get a GED by then, you can mark GED. So a few more items to pay attention to. Question 26. This is in the student section. College grade level. Never attended college, even if you've taken classes. I said this earlier. I just always reiterate it. You can answer attended college before, but first year. If you have taken classes outside of your high school, meaning that you took a handful of summer courses and you have, it's not 2 classes, it's 15 credit hours. There. Question 27 is first bachelor's degree. Even if you plan to attend community college or a trade school, or you don't know that you're going to get a bachelor's degree, put first bachelor's degree. It makes you eligible for the most amount of aid. And then question 28 is, are you interested in work study? The answer is yes. You're always interested in work study. Does it mean you have to get a job on campus? No. Does it mean you have to take a work study job? No. But what it does do is if a faculty member offers you a research position, you may have the opportunity to do research for them, but they will ask if you are eligible for work study. So I always like my students to be eligible for that. And then question 6 is the college list. So my advice on this is to go out and search and get the FAFSA ID for each of your schools and have the list. Because then when you get to that page, which hopefully is my next slide, it is, yay. So instead of having to put in the state, the city, don't search by school name. If you misspell anything, your school won't come up. So either search by state and city and or use the FAFSA ID code. So that is the screen that you use to search for your schools. Again, you can list 10 to start with, and then you can add more. There's a question on the chat about if the student still lives at home but files her own tax return and has income, the student should the student fill out a FAFSA herself without using parent income? No. The student is required by law to use parents' income. So the student will fill out their own section, and the student will fill out the student income section, which is part of the FAFSA. And they will the student will transfer their tax return from the IRS, but they will also be required to fill out their parent income unless they meet one of those other 4 criteria. And then, okay, so parent information. Hooray, hooray. Generally, you're going to fill in your name and social security number. That's easy. Question 79 is if you filed a Schedule 1 on your tax return. I'm going to talk about this in more detail in just a minute. This is going to auto load from the IRS, but there are criteria in Schedule 1 that if you were unemployed and you do not have to report that there. So you can put no for that answer there. If you were a dislocated worker, if you are somebody who has lost their job in the past year, since you filed your 2021 tax return, right? I'm going to cover that, what you do for that, but you can mark you're a dislocated worker. Now, if your family income is lower, this question will come up. If your family income is higher, like above about 75,000, this question won't even come up as a choice. And then questions 81 through 84 are auto-loaded on the IRS. If for some reason you go to auto-load from the IRS and you cannot load it, hit the try again button to start with, double check the name, make sure the name is right, make sure the name is exactly as it appears. Check that data and then try it again. If that still doesn't work, you can fill in the information by hand. Have your tax return sitting next to you. You're going to look at each question. It's going to tell you what line on the tax return to gather that information from, and you can fill it in. It's not very fun, and it takes some time. And then that's tax return on them. Okay. Over on the chat, even if the student is in college already, yes, they have to use their parents' information on their tax return unless they are 25. If they have completed their bachelor's degree and are going to graduate school, then they can file as an independent student. But otherwise, no. FAFSA does not cover students taking college classes in high school. It does not apply to them. Most high schools and most school districts have a program to cover high school students taking college classes. If they take them outside of the high school in the summer, then it's on the parents to pay for those courses. Question 85 is household sources of income. cash savings checking accounts. I always like to tell people, it's going to ask for what is the balance in your bank account as of today. If you are someone who gets paid weekly or biweekly, use what is in your bank account today when you're filling out the form. If you're someone like me who gets paid one time a month at the beginning of the month, right? So my bank account on October 1st, actually October 3rd, looked really good, right? It was nice and high. All my paychecks had come in. And then I had to pay my house payment and my car payment and my cell phone payment, right? All my standard bills. So by October 20th, my bank account is much smaller. So you can report your bank account balance minus your standard expenses, not changing expenses. So not my gas, not my food expenses. It's these are the exact, this money comes out every month on the exact same day. All right. So here is the IRS transfer tool. It looks great. You get down here, you're filling it all out. See across the top, the check marks, student demographic, school selection, dependent status, parents, demographic information, and then we're at the parents' financial information. You transfer it from the IRS, you fill in, you've already completed it, you're using a 1040. If you have not already completed it, you're in the process of completing it, you mark that there, it will not give you the IRS transfer tool because you can't transfer for it. It's not completed. If you have completed your tax return in the last month, you will not be able to auto load your tax return. And then status, married, filing jointly, head of household, single, whatever your status is. And then you get to this page, and this page creates havoc. Because as long as you are logged in as the parent, you can fill in your FAFSA ID and password and continue. If the student is logged in and filling out the form, when they get to this page, they will be stuck. They need to log out, sign out, right? There's a little, it's not on this page, but they're going to have to sign out. You have to log in as the parent, click through all the stuff you've already filled out, and then do the parent transfer. Okay. The same is true when you get to the student finances if we're transferring the student's tax return. Here is my favorite question. Question 85. Parent, where'd I go? Parent investments. And what parent assets. Question 85 is parent assets, and what are they and how do you report them? Here are the things you do not report. You do not report 401ks, IRAs, whether they're Roth IRAs or regular IRAs, life insurance, cash value of life insurance, pension plans do not have to be reported here. The value of the home you currently live in, not reported. Things you do have to report, the value of a 529. And even if the 529 is in the student name, it goes under a parent, it's a parent asset. And this is important because parent assets are looked at a much smaller percentage for FAFSA than our student assets. Prepaid tuition plans, coveralls. I have a whole screen we're going to go through in just a minute. The other thing I want to point out is money paid to you from your grandparents' 529 plan or a college savings plan from your grandparents. If you take a distribution from that, then you have to report it. But if you are a senior right now, you are not going to report that this year as a freshman because you haven't taken a distribution from that yet. As you move through college and you take distributions from that, then you will have to report that. And then the other thing is rental property. All my people who own rental properties, I have a big sheet that I can send you, the coaches can send you if you want to ask for it, if you have a complicated rental situation. If you own a rental property, you have to report the value of that property minus what you owe on it. And this always gets people in parent assets. It's pretty painful. especially if you have a paid for rental property, all of a sudden your assets are sitting at $500,000, especially the way the real estate market is right now. So just know that that is there, but it is the value of the property minus what you owe on it. So if you have a home equity line of credit on it, if you owe a mortgage on it, you subtract that from the value, and that is the amount you report as the parent asset. Parent credit card balance? No, you don't get to subtract that from the cash and savings. Sorry. Because credit card balances change all the time. So my best suggestion on that is to, once you pay the credit card off, pay that credit card payment for the month, use your bank account balance then. Somebody asked if it's a change for not counting the grandparents 529 plan. Yes, that is new. And it's only counted when it's distributed to the student now, and it's counted as a student asset once it's distributed to them. Again, IRAs are only claimed if you take a withdrawal. So this is what the parent asset reporting sheet looks like. This is question, I think 85 right here is cash value of your parents' account. Then value of their investments and assets. And then the last line is if you own a business that has more than 100 employees, you have to report the value there. Now, if you are a family that has a lower income, there is a question right before this that asks, does your family have cash and assets less than $8,000? And if you answer yes on that question, these questions are not going to come up. They will just poof, disappear. So here is non-reportable assets. Here are reportable assets. Let's cover what you don't report again. Your primary place of residence, the home you live in. Doesn't matter what the value of it is, you're not going to report it. If you have a family farm, if you own a small business and it has less than 100 full-time employees, you do not have to report the value of the business, the value of the assets in the business, not going to report it. All qualified retirement plans. This includes annuities, 401ks, 403bs, pension plans, all those things. Life insurance policies and the cash value of whole life policies. Don't have to report. The other thing you don't have to report are any of the values of your personal possessions. Your computers, your cars, your TVs, any of that is not reported on FAFSA. So under reported assets, you are going to report the cash, even if it's stuffed in a mattress. If you are somebody who works in a service industry where you're paid a lot of cash, you've got to report the value of that cash you have hanging out. Your bank account, checking, savings, CDs, brokerage accounts, money markets accounts. What's not on here that has been added is cryptocurrency. Investments, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, stock options. Congratulations for those of you who have restricted stock options. Yes, you have to report the value of those. Even if you were to leave the company tomorrow, and I know those would disappear, that value would disappear, you still have to report those while you are working at that company. Hedge funds, precious metals, college savings 529 plans. Like I said, those go under the parent asset, even if it's got the student name on it. Real estate. So an investment farm, trust funds, and emergency funds. They asked if I can repeat the amount that is listed in your checking and savings account. Oh, $8,000. So if your checking and savings and assets are less than $8,000, you will answer yes on that question, and those other questions will not come up. Okay. Remember I said I was going to talk about Schedule 1 again, because your Schedule 1, if you do your tax return, will auto transfer. So when it does that, it will ask you, you want to answer no on question 79 if any of the following is true. You filed a Schedule 1 because you have unemployment compensation. You're reporting an Alaska permit. You have education expenses. You have an IRA deduction. You have a student loan interest deduction, or you have virtual currency that may required you to file a Schedule 1. Those all go there. So those are the reasons on question 79, you would say no, even if you did file a Schedule 1. And again, most of this will auto load from your tax return. Okay, so I have a question. If you have a business bank account, do I have to report that money? You do not have to report the money in the business bank account as long as your business has less than 100 full-time employees. So if you have a small business, less than 100 employees, you do not have to report that balance. So grandparents 529 distributions will not count on the student's income at the 2023-24 FAFSA. That is correct if they are a senior in high school. That is not correct if they are in college and have taken a distribution from them. So if a student is a sophomore, junior, senior in college and took a distribution from their grandparents' account, that will show up on line 41I. If you don't know what an Alaska permanent is, don't worry about it. It is, it's a status for residents of Alaska who own mineral and oil rights and receive money from the state and the federal government based on that. But they have to file a Schedule 1 when they report it. So question about question 89, is that contribution to a 401k in the year 2021? Yes. It is also can be on your W-2. It will show a contribution to a pension plan. That's the number that we'll report in there as well. So exciting stuff. Look, we got through all our check boxes. We're now down to sign and submit. Again, don't sign it. Send it to your coach. Let them look at it. Then go back in and sign it. And again, the student's going to have to log in as the student and sign. And then the student has to log out. And then the parent has to log in as a parent and sign. Are scholarships considered student incomes or assets? There is a line on the FAFSA where scholarships, if they were reported on the tax return, so if the scholarship awardee reported that the student received a scholarship, and then the student receives information on that, it's usually a 1099 D, I think, or a 1099 miss. It's usually a 1099 miss. And the student had to report that on their tax return, then yes, they will report that. But again, that will auto load from the tax return. Okay. If you have real estate for renting, which belongs to a business, do you need to report it? The answer is generally yes. There are very few people who have their real estate businesses set up in a way that allows them not to report it. That person, reach out to your coach. I will send them, here are the rules for reporting real estate. So the things that can keep you, if the property is in the business name and not in your individual name, that helps you get out of having to report it as an asset on FAFSA. But you also have to be a licensed real estate agent as part of that criteria to not have to report that. So like I said, there is a lot there in terms of rental property. If the rental property is in the business's name and you are a real estate agent, like the title on the property is the business name, not an individual's name, then it is a business asset and you don't have to report it. Is it beneficial to open a HELOC for the purposes of FAFSA? If you have no mortgage? Only if you withdraw money from that, because it's only debt against the property. So a rental property that has a high value, you're gonna have to report it unless it has debt against it, or like I said, it's held in the business name, like the title on it is the business name, not the individual. But I can send that out. Do reach out, whoever asked that question about rental property, reach out to your coach, because I can send you, or reach out to me. You know what, I'm gonna put my email address in the chat. Reach out to me and say, I was on your FAFSA webinar and I need the information on rental property, because I can send you the document that it's about 4 pages long. So you can read and see what rules apply to you and your specific property. So now we've completed our FAFSA. This is what comes up. It acknowledges that you've submitted your FAFSA. And then it gives you a number, and then it gives you your expected family contribution. And we're going to talk about that in 1 second. I just wanted to show you what that page looks like after you submit, because you get a confirmation and the student will get an email confirmation. By the way, parents, guess what? FAFSA is the student's responsibility, and this email will go to the student, not you as a parent. Here is your FAFSA summary page. This comes to you. This is what I want you to send to your coach. It's actually 6 pages long. I'm just showing you 2 sample pages of it. Send that to your coach before you sign. Okay, I'm going to pick up a few of the chat questions here. So you have a child who is in their 3rd year of college. Congratulations. And you filled out the FAFSA. And then the second child's in high school who's going to be a senior. You'll have 2 students in college next year. Will the EFC be half of what it was for the one child? No. We all wish it was, but no. It will get a reduction because there is a question that you can answer. It's going to ask how many students you currently have in college, and you put that number in there, and that does go into the EFC calculation, but it by no means cuts it in half, not even close. But it does reduce it. A postgrad student who just turned 25, yes, they are going to file independently and do not have to have parent information. If the rental is in a trust, you have to report it, yes, because you are required to report in assets the value of a trust. Question about whether both parents need to log in and submit a FAFSA form. If the parents are divorced, yes, both parents need to fill a FAFSA form and submit them. If the parents married filing jointly, only one parent needs to do that. What if I want to understand this question. So what if the parent quit claiming the student now and is the owner of the house? So the student owns the house. If the student lives in the house full time, then you wouldn't have to report it. But the student's name needs to be on the title of that house, on the title documentation. Yes, students and parents both need to submit the FAFSA form. It's the student's FAFSA, and then they sign it, their section, and then the parents sign in their section, and then it's submitted. And if you're a parent who has multiple kids in, you fill out the FAFSA form once, and then it allows you to go over and say, it says, do you have another child? And you say, yes, and you fill in their basic information, and it will auto load the information you completed for the one child to the other child. The post-grad student, you can still claim you have 2 children in college. Even if the one student is filing their FAFSA independently. You still get to have 2 kids in college, yes. So the student's out of state. The house is now in the name of the student. Then that doesn't have to be claimed as an apparent asset on the FAFSA form. Okay, think I got everything out of the chat. Oh wait, I have one more, I think. If the parent has a 529 and they liquidate it, is it still an asset? Well, you can liquidate the 529, but depending on where that cash is, it's still gonna show up as an asset because it's gonna be in a bank account or something. There's a question about how the student submits the form. I'm gonna cover that again here in a second, and we'll go through it because I want you to see it. Once a student submits their FAFSA, the information is run through a formula. By the way, this formula changes every year. If you want to see it, go for it. Log into the FAFSA site and look it up. The good news is it increased the income by $2,000 this year again, so that is nice. So it's raised the limit for them. And then what happens is, as the student aid report is generated, and it contains the information submitted on the FAFSA. Again, as a coach, we'd love to see this information because it helps us work with the student on what aid they're getting and what their aid looks like and what that means. I would say about 5% of my students send me their student aid report. This usually comes to the student's email about 2 weeks after they've submitted their FAFSA. And then it creates what is called expected family contribution. The expected family contribution determines need-based financial aid. Colleges are not required to cover any amount of college. So if your expected family contribution is $20,000 and the college cost is $30,000, the college is not required to cover that $20,000. I just want people to be aware of that. Additionally, it is not the expected contribution over 4 years. We would all love it if that were true. It is for 1 year. And it can be a really painful number. And generally speaking, most of us do not have that much spare income to contribute to our students' college education. The student didn't apply to college last year as a senior. Can he still apply for FAFSA now? Yes, absolutely. A student, anytime, anyone, an adult, anyone going back to college, whether it be community college, trade school, four-year college, can apply for FAFSA. And so if they're intend to attend college in the fall, then they would fill out the FAFSA for the following year. Okay. There's no requirement to fill out a FAFSA form to graduate from high school. I can't imagine that's true. You have a junior right now. You are going to fill out the FAFSA form next October. So October of the student's senior year. You should pay attention to your income coming into the end of this year, because that is the income that will be reported on your student's FAFSA form. Once you're at the end, this is what the FAFSA when you're logged in looks like. Edit your FAFSA form. So if you need to add more colleges, this is the space to do that. See your student aid report. This is where you do that. Question about the maximum amount of money that could be awarded from FAFSA. I'm going to cover that in 1 second, actually. So here is what the aid report, expected family contribution. This one is a 0, hooray for them. Translation, they're going to get $6,795 in Pell Grant. So financial aid is awarded in 3 forms. Student loans. You have to complete student loan counseling. There is a subsidized loan, which means there's no interest charged on the loan while the student is in college and until 6 months after graduation. And then there's an unsubsidized loan. Right now, these unsubsidized loans are currently being held in deferment. Starting January 1, people are going to have to start paying interest on these unsubsidized loans. You can turn down any loan money you do not need. They will automatically award you the full amount. If you don't need the full amount, do not take it. Grants are wonderful because they don't have to be paid back. Hooray! And the Pell Grant this year is $6,795. Grants generally can only be used towards tuition, and they are renewable every year, but you have to fill out a FAFSA, and that your income changes significantly. 1 year you can get awarded a Pell Grant or a full Pell Grant, and the next year it could change. Those awards change every year. Students, parents, save all your documents. Create a little file on your desktop that says FAFSA forms. Put a copy of your student aid report in there, because if you have to go back and change your FAFSA or you get selected for verification from the college, they're going to ask you for information off of that FAFSA. So you've got to report that. Don't freak out if you get selected for verification. 60% of students do randomly. So don't worry about it. Just follow the instructions on the school's financial aid office. Students, 2 weeks before you get your student aid report back, and then 2 weeks before you can change the colleges on your list. If you need help with your FAFSA, contact your coach. You can go to FAFSA.gov, you can call the 800 number, or you can email them at student aid. If you are a student attending a private college, please check the college's website. Make sure you're filling out all their financial aid documentation required, because it could be more than a FAFSA. It could be a CSS profile. It could be a college form. Georgia Tech, 3 forms to qualify for scholarships at Georgia Tech. FAFSA, CSS profile, and the Georgia Tech form. Remember earlier when I said if you have a significant change in family income, you can be eligible for more financial aid. What you have to do is wait until your child is accepted to a college and decides to attend. Once they've decided to attend the college, they can contact the school and ask for what's called a professional judgment. They'll fill out a form that says a change in income status, and then they can fill in their documentation, send that in, and then the school may award additional funding based on that. Question about for the tax returns, just the most recent tax year. Just the most recent tax year. It's only going to load your 2021 tax return. Okay, everybody in my business is talking about student loan forgiveness. I actually got an email yesterday. I got to preview the form. I expect it's probably going to open up on Monday. No guarantee on that date. They're saying by the end of October for sure. But you can go to the student loan forgiveness website and sign up, and they will send you a notification when that opens. Log into your FAFSA account, see if you're eligible. They have a whole list of criteria. It's very clear to see if you are eligible. And then you need to file that documentation by December 31st, 2023. My personal advice is file it immediately. There are states out there that are suing the federal government over this program. And depending on where that ends up in court, that money may or may not be eligible to people in those states. So if you have student loans out there, you can get some of that income, that loan forgiven. And the income they keep saying on TV is $125,000. It's $125,000 or less if you were single. You are married filing jointly or head of household, the ceiling limit is $250,000. So if you are someone who's out there who makes less than $250,000 and still has student loans out there, you can apply for the student loan forgiveness program. $10,000, and it will come off directly off of your student loan. You will not see the money. It will come off of your student loan. Here's the number for those loan services and where those are at. So we are the Heartland Institution for Financial Education. That's kind of the end of my FAFSA presentation. I'm going to put this screen up. Remember, I promised I'd put this screen up for you guys to take a screenshot of or send out. It has all the links that I covered in my webinar. All right. I think I have a few minutes and I can open up for questions. And my puppy's going to bark, of course. But I am going to stop the recording. Give me 1 second here. And